Welcome to this episode of Grace Talk. We pray above all things that this lesson will draw you deeper into all that Jesus has provided for you. Remember to follow, like and subscribe and share this podcast with your friends and tell them to search for Grace Talk Scott. That's all one word, Grace Talk Scott. Her life was transformed for the better, and that is the fruit of grace. That's the fruit of relationship with Jesus.
If you don't do what you're supposed to do, if you do what you're not supposed to do, the religious will point that out.
There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus saith unto her, Give me to drink.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Grace Talk. This is episode 41 and it is the third in our mini-series that we started a couple of weeks ago called The End of Religion, where we've been chatting, myself and Nunsy, about Jesus and his mission and that he came to end religion, not start another one. And we'd looked at him turning water into wine, and last week chatted about Jesus and his encounter with Nicodemus. And this week we're looking at another encounter, which is right on the other end of the scale of society, I suppose you could say. So tell us what that verse was, Nunsy, and the context of it, please.
That verse is John 4 verse 7, and this is Jesus meeting the Samaritan woman. Another famous encounter.
Absolutely, the Samaritan woman at the well. And it's one of my favourite encounters. I've taught on it many times. I've read it many times. But there's always something new in it. And for me, it talks about the inclusivity of Jesus. Especially if we think about the encounter that we spoke about last week when Jesus met Nicodemus. So we see Jesus meeting Nicodemus, and the next person he meets is the Samaritan woman at the well. And that, for me, talks about how inclusive Jesus is. Because, well, Nicodemus and the woman at the well are completely different people, aren't they? You know, they're on different levels of society, different genders, different sexes for a start. And we know how unimportant women were back in that day. You know, they were on different levels of society. And Nicodemus, remember, he was a Pharisee and high up in this religion of Judaism, very important person. And I think it's also, I've just noticed, I think for the first time I've spoken about it, I just noticed he's named. He's important enough to have a name. But the woman at the well isn't. Man, woman, named, not named. Nicodemus, probably zealous, very holy. You know, I'm doing that in quotation marks that you can't see on this podcast. Whereas the woman at the well is, for a better word, we can't use it, she's a fornicator. You know, she's had numbers of husbands. The man she's with now is not her husband. Nicodemus is a Jew. This woman isn't even a Gentile. She's like a mixture. She's a Samaritan. And the Jewish nation looked on the Samaritans worse than they looked on Gentiles. Samaritans were kind of bastardized Jews. Kind of Jews, but not. Worshipped in a different place, worshipped at a different temple. What John's doing here is telling us that Jesus will meet, will encounter, will relate to everybody in society, from the highest to the lowest. And that to me is about inclusivity. But what's it got to do with the end of religion, Vic? Well, religion is exclusive, as I've seen it. I mean, to be in the Jewish religion, you had to be born into it. And this woman is a Samaritan, another religious group. And we see that today. Religion is all about groups, what you're born into. And it has exclusive clauses and exclusive things you have to do. You have to pray a certain way. You have to pray a certain amount of times. You have to visit certain places. That's all exclusive. But Jesus came to end religion, bring about relationship, And he's showing that by relating to these two completely different people on completely different social scales and completely different racial groups, completely different genders, and saying, you're all welcome. And I love it that he speaks to the woman at the well after Nicodemus. And what I love is John 4:4. Can you maybe read John 4:4 for us?
It says, and he must needs go through Samaria.
Well, actually, he didn't. He didn't have to go through Samaria. It's when we're looking at it, where he's going from and to, you don't have to walk through Samaria. I mean, if you want to go from Forest to Elgin, the most direct route, yes, you go through Avis. But you don't have to go through Avis. You can go through Kinloss, Rose Isle, Rafford, Dallas. This is like Jesus going from Forest to Elgin through Dallas, which, unless you want to avoid the main road, is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, most folk listening won't have a clue about where we're talking about. But I'm trying to say he didn't need to go through Samaria. But this verse says he had to go through Samaria. And we all know why he had to go through Samaria, don't we?
Well, he must needs go. He needed to. He wanted to go and meet this woman.
He wanted to go and meet the woman. So do you want to maybe tell us a little bit more about the woman, about the time of day and all that kind of thing?
Oh, well, yes.
Because you were talking about something this morning to do with the time.
It came to me that Nicodemus came to Jesus by night. We spoke about that. And we said that we felt that that was because he was avoiding being spotted by his peer group, that religion is the cause of a lot of fear of rejection and ridicule and isolation from the group. We were saying he was avoiding that by coming at night so as not to have to deal with that. And in this same sense, this woman, she came at what is described as the heat of the day.
Well, it says...
Actually, it doesn't say the heat of the day.
No, it says about the 6th hour.
Yeah. It says that Jesus came about the 6th hour, being wearied from his journey. And in this instance, I think John is using Jewish time. The 6th hour is noon, which would have been hot. It also says that the disciples had gone to get food. I don't know if the shops would have been open at 6 o'clock in the morning. So this is noon. So it's hot. And Jesus is wearied from his journey. He's sitting on the well to take rest. And then this woman comes. And in the same way that Nicodemus was avoiding his peer group, we think that she was avoiding her peer group by coming when she suspected nobody else would be there. It was a hot time of the day. People didn't normally come to get their water in the middle of the day. They would come in the morning or in the evening when it was cooler. So she also is avoiding her peer group, not for religious reasons, but for social ones. As Jesus goes on to reveal to her later his knowledge of her lifestyle, it would seem that she's avoiding meeting her peers because of ridicule. Not, as I say, not because of religious reasons, but for social ones.
Well, I think you probably could talk about religious ones as well, because she was probably, the way I see it is, she was in fear of condemnation from those people that felt more pious, more superior, because they would have been married, living appropriately as their religion and their social norms would suggest. And I think we can say religious because at the time, all social norms were based on the religion.
True. Yes, that's very true.
So the religious, or the more pious, or those that thought they were living more holy or more righteously, would all be out getting their water early in the morning when it was cool. And I think this woman is avoiding that. So yes, it could have been social condemnation, but I would suggest it would be religious condemnation at the same time, because at that point in history, they would have been one and the same. There was no kind of distinction, I think, my reading of the word in this context, between the social and religious. They're all one. It's sometimes quite difficult for us to grasp that, living in such a secular society. But back then, they would have been condemning her for religious reasons. So, yeah, I think that's an interesting point that you bring out, that they came at different times, but probably for the same reasons, not wanting to potentially be ridiculed or looked at or condemned in terms of their religious performance. I mean, Nicodemus was different. He was religious. He was at the height of his religion. So his ridicule, condemnation, whatever, would have been completely different from the woman at the well, but would have still been coming from the religious establishment of the day. So I think that's a good point you bring up. And for me, it points to religion can be condemning.
Definitely.
If you don't perform, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, if you do what you're not supposed to do, the religious will point that out. And we can do that to ourselves, because religion is quite subtle. If we ever at any point in our walk have the, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I must do this, I must do that, I would suggest that is the law. And religion subtly coming in from ourselves and trying to condemn, trying to point out our failings, trying to point out, well, you're not in proper relationship with the Lord. Are you really? Even, are you really a believer? You're not doing this, you're not doing that. Jesus never did that to people. Jesus was only ever, dare I say, scathing in his remarks to people who were being religious.
Yeah, I see that later on when they start their conversation. And Jesus doesn't mention her ungodliness at all to begin with. It's not even mentioned. He doesn't attack her for her ungodliness and for all her failings and failures. He draws her to himself. He gets her attention, lowers all her defences, then uses the gifts of the Holy Spirit to reveal what he knows about her, and then that causes the reaction. And this, it's so important that that's reinforced. As she's coming out to this well, she would have seen a man sat at the well. So there must have been something going through her mind. Oh, somebody's here. Who is it? Oh, it's okay, I don't know him. He doesn't know me. I'll be all right. So she then goes to the well and they begin this discussion. I think that's a lovely point that the word makes about how the disciples had gone. It was just Jesus on his own. And I will just drop this in here. This is a completely other matter. But at this point in the timeline, there's actually only 2 disciples. Jesus has met Andrew and Peter, but they haven't followed him yet. They'll follow him in a little while. So there was only 2 disciples actually with Jesus following him. So those 2 had gone off. If there'd been the 3 men there, it's highly unlikely she would have approached. But one was probably okay. She was safe enough. But I feel the defensiveness of this woman as she's coming out. And Jesus puts her completely at her ease and just begins the conversation about water.
Yeah, there's, like you say, there's absolutely no condemnation. Yes, we see in the encounter that eventually he states the facts, but no condemnation. It's a bit like the woman taken in adultery.
Yeah, that's right. I was just going to say there's nothing about stoning or anything like that.
No condemnation at all to that lady. And only after he accepts her, in a sense forgives her, does he then say, go and sin no more. But there's no condemnation at all. A relationship with Jesus is no condemnation, but religion does and will. It is part of its toolkit to bring people into line. I mean, looking at the actions of this lady, there are probably, I don't like saying it, but actions that need to be brought into line. You know, she is clearly a sinner, which is being pointed out. But weren't we all before we came to Jesus? Weren't we all sinners? Didn't we all need his compassion and his mercy? And that's what he's given this woman here. And of course, at the end of the story, end of this account, we see her turning into an evangelist. This woman who wouldn't even come out among the other women in the cool of the day, running into the city to speak to the men. I mean, what a change. But that's like a completely different story. We're talking about this as an example of the end of religion. And we see that with the comparison between Nicodemus and the woman. But I think we also see it with the encounter with her, when Jesus is talking about worshipping in spirit and truth and where you need to worship. Because one of the differentiations between the Jewish nation and the Samaritans was they had different places to worship. They had different temples. And Jesus kind of says in verse 21, there's a time coming when it doesn't matter what mountain you are on, it doesn't matter where your temple is, you're going to worship the Father in another way. Verse 21 says, Jesus saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. That's talking about where they worship, the place of worship for their religion. It's not going to be here at your temple. It's not going to be Jerusalem at their temple. It's going to be yourself when you are the temple of the Holy Spirit, when the living God is inside you, and then you'll worship him in spirit and in truth. Because religion is going to be done away with, so there won't be need for either temple. Your walk with the Lord will then be a relationship with him who's inside you. Now that's awesome. That must be talking about religion being finished and relationship starting.
Yeah. I love it as well when Jesus, at the beginning of the encounter, they're talking about water, he asks her to draw water, and then he starts talking about living water, and she says, give me this living water. And then at the end of the meeting, we see her leaving her water pot. Verse 28 says, the woman then left her water pot and went her way into the city. And for me, that's the picture that she's received of that living water. And as you say, Jesus has just said, the hour cometh when you shall neither worship in this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You. And here we are. This is the moment when she's received of Jesus. And now, as you say, she's worshipping in this new way. It's such a beautiful picture.
It is. And I've just had a revelation as you were saying that. This woman asks, where are we going to worship? So she's obviously worshipping. And like you said, Jesus said, I will give you the living water. Jesus gives us that once. But this woman must have been coming to this well day after day after day to draw water. And this is a picture like her religion, having to go to the temple time after time after time to do the same thing, to try and have their sins dealt with, but just covered, not dealt with. And in that sense, coming to the well day after day after day is a picture. She's now met Jesus, and I've just seen it, as you've said. She leaves her water pot. She just puts it down and walks into the town. That's like her, I see it now, as turning her back on religion. Because she's now met Jesus. She doesn't need religion anymore. It's a bit like Jesus desecrating the water pots. That was a picture we spoke about in the first of this series. By this picture of the woman just leaving her water pot, she's turning her back on religion. I mean, it's not as if she's never going to draw water from that well again. This is a picture, don't take it literally, but it's a picture of her putting down her religion.
That's good.
Because she doesn't need it anymore. And walking away. You won't worship in this mountain, Samaritans. The Jews won't be worshipping on their mountain in Jerusalem. You don't need those mountains. You don't need those temples anymore. And we'll look at that in a bit more detail next week. Because I'm here now.
Yeah.
It was like when Jesus turned the water into wine in those ritual pots of the Jews. He was saying, you don't need to do ritual washing anymore. You don't need your religious observances anymore. Because I'm here. It's not religion anymore. It's not what you do. It's what I've done. And because of that, it's our relationship that is now important. Worshipping in spirit and in truth, which kind of says the old ways, religion was not spirit and truth.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, Jesus is bringing this completely new transformational way. And after the woman has left and the disciples are back, they've brought him food and they say, Master, eat. And then in verse 32, Jesus said unto them, I have meat to eat that you know not of. And of course the disciples immediately think of physical food. They're saying, oh, somebody else brought him something to eat. And he says, my meat is to do the will of him that sent me and to finish the work. And he's just had this encounter with this woman. He's effectively saying, look, this is the sort of thing that is the exact reason why I'm here. This is what the Father wants me to do, is to set people free from the bondages of religion and to bring them into the liberty and the freedom of relationship with God through me. It's such a wonderful picture of the end of religion.
It is, and I really like verse 26, because only God could do that. And here's Jesus in a sense saying, I'm God.
Yeah, that's right.
Verse 25, the woman saith unto him, I know that Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. When he is come, he will tell us all things. And Jesus saith unto her, I that speak unto thee am he. Now the he is in italics, which means it wasn't there in the original, and the translators have added it in to try and aid our understanding. They haven't done that in this case, I don't think. Because Jesus is saying, I that speak unto thee am.
I am.
I am. That's God speaking there. Now Jesus is talking about ending religion, finishing the temple system, be it on the Samaritan mountain or the Jerusalem mountain. He's saying, I've come to end that. Only God could do that. And this is showing Jesus. I mean, some theologians will tell us that Jesus never claimed his divinity. He does it loads of times, because he uses this I am phrase quite a few times. I that speak unto thee am. That's just amazing. He's saying, I am God, and only God could come and end religion.
I think that's such an important point.
Yes.
Because this whole religion, this setup, which was established by God, only God can come and say, actually, now it's over. Or it's being fulfilled. Jesus came to fulfill it. And it's here. It's now. Now is the time for this to happen. Only God can do that. Only God can make that timely decision.
And at the same time, we've spoken about this on a number of occasions, that man and God was separated by sin. Sin was caused by man, so only man could deal with it. Or man had to deal with it. But only God could. Hence Jesus, fully God, fully man. That's what the word says. So it's just amazing. Here's this man at the well, and the woman who was clearly worshipping, because she asks about it, and knows about the Messiah coming, and looking for the Messiah coming. And here he is, standing right in front of her. And what I love is she recognizes him. Now, all the way through the Gospel of John, we see the Pharisees, the scribes, religious people, time after time after time, being in front of Jesus, hearing similar things to what this woman is hearing, and not recognizing him. Is this a picture of her, I don't know, not having that such a religious mindset that she's blinded to the truth? I don't know. But for whatever reason, she recognizes him as the Messiah, as the Christ. She believes him. And then just the natural thing is, she goes and tells every one of them. Tells all the people. And many more believed. Many believed because of what she said. That's just astounding.
That is amazing, isn't it?
A wonderful transformation. And that's the great thing about a relationship with Jesus, which I think religion cannot do. It's this amazing transformation. Religion is about doing this, doing that, stopping this, stopping that. That might alter your performance initially, and maybe in a small part. But trying and striving never works. Paul spoke about the most zealous nation on the earth not being able to make themselves righteous. But Gentiles could move into righteousness through belief. So what I'm trying to say is religion cannot change people for the long term, permanently. But we see this woman, one small encounter with Jesus, a single encounter with Jesus, and she is changed almost instantly. She believes in Jesus, she has faith in Jesus, and she is changed. Religion can't do that. Relationship with Jesus can. And she's off, like I said before, unwilling to come out with other women in the cool of the day. But now, once she's met Jesus, willing to go into the city to the men. This woman, and they would all know what she's like. And now here she comes, bold as brass, approaching them and telling them about Jesus. Now, and there must have been something different about this woman, because they follow her. They follow her out to Jesus. So there must have been something amazingly different about them. Was it the countenance of her face? Was it the brightness of her eyes? Was it the smile? Something had changed in that woman to such a huge extent that the men were willing to follow her out to see this guy at the well. That is just staggering to me. Staggering. And that shows what relationship with Jesus can do rather than religion.
Definitely.
Amazing transformation.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful picture. I think that what you just said there about her transformation is really powerful. And it was attractive. It attracted people to Jesus, that transformation. That's such a big part of what Jesus does.
That is a really good point. Positive transformation with that relationship is attractive. Condemning religion, in my experience, was repelling.
Yeah, it is.
We've been in faith now for a long time. We've seen both sides of the coin, and well, it's not even the sides of the coin. It's like we've seen all kinds of scale from one extreme to the other. I've seen a lot of religion that is repelling, but I've met a lot of people living in grace in a relationship with Jesus Christ that just attract you and want you to be with them. I mean, you were talking about that couple that we met at a wedding recently, and they just attract you to them because there just didn't seem to be a religious bone in their body. I don't know how to explain it.
No, there was a passion for Jesus and a desire for the things of him that I just found really, really, as you say, attractive. And that's the kind of person that I want to be around, that I love being around. Somebody who inspires me in my own relationship with the Lord, inspires me to press into the things of him, to go deeper, higher, further in my relationship with the Lord. It's something about people who are like that is really, really attractive and that makes me want to surround myself with them.
Religion repels.
I'm afraid it does. I know a lady who works in an environment where there's lots of members of staff. Some of them call themselves Christians, and this lady, my friend, she said that these people are so awful, and you shouldn't be doing that, you shouldn't be speaking like that, you shouldn't be this, you shouldn't be that. And she said it's completely repelling. It's not attractive. It's not drawing people into a depth of positive relationship with Jesus. What Jesus offers is complete acceptance, loving somebody right where they are, drawing them to him in that loving relationship, and then seeing them being transformed into completely different people. The same person, but completely different. The oppression, the behaviors, all of that negativity just totally gone because of that relationship with Jesus. That fits in completely with all Paul's writings about grace and about what grace does, how grace is completely transformational in a positive way. And he says, shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? It's a ridiculous thing to say because grace has the opposite effect. Grace didn't send that woman into the city and her carry on and do what she was doing without caring about it. And it doesn't matter what I do now. God's forgiven me. No, her life was transformed for the better. And that is the fruit of grace. That's the fruit of relationship with Jesus, is that total transformation for the better.
Amen. What a way to preach the end of this podcast. Thank you for that. Awesome. So we will be back next week when we'll be talking more about this, probably about Nicodemus and the woman at the well again, in terms of ending religion, in terms of the temple.
We're going to go back a couple of chapters again.
We're going to go back a little bit because we missed a wee bit out, but it will probably work out nicely the way we're going to do it now. So thank you for listening. I hope that blessed you, and we'll look forward to spending some more time with you next week. So God bless and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Grace Talk. We hope that it interested and inspired you, and you can use it on your journey as you search the scriptures and find out all that God has for you through the finished work of Jesus. Please like, subscribe and share, and head over to Facebook, YouTube, Spotify and Amazon Music and search for Grace Talk Scott. That's all one word, Grace Talk Scott, and join the conversation.